Hey everybody, welcome back to our free TV. It is Friday, August 15th, 2025. TGIF. Always love a Friday. Thank God I'm free. Thank God it's Friday. So glad to be back with you here. I'll jump in with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution, protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act in reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone. It never gives legal, medical, or financial advice, etc., etc., etc. Okay. I that's further disclaimers in the description below. Sometimes I get tired of saying it. So, okay, we're going to just jump in here with the news. We had a huge day. Of course, this is the Alaska Accords, everything that happened there with Putin meeting with Trump, the team there, Sergei Lavrov, all of their different envoys, etc. And of course, the main team meeting with Putin was Marco Rubio and Steve Witkoff. Okay, and so we're going to jump in there with the news there. But first, I like to always start by saying thank you to everybody supporting the channel, and I always start by also thanking the people who are supporting in the news zone here. We've got multiple people that I want to say thank you to. Tana, Michael, Jim, Lana, thank you so much. And to everybody supporting monthly. You make the channel happen, and I'm so thankful. And I also, of course, start by saying thank you to my sponsor, c60evo.com/YAFTV. Code is 10% off is YAFTV at checkout there, and 15% off to anybody who supports the channel. You get that code, a new code, new link sent to you for supporters of the channel, 15% off. Of course, C60 Evo is the amazing miracle molecule made in the best lab in the world in Houston, Texas, where they have the incredible this incredible lab that literally recreates the heat of the sun, creates fullerenes, and basically cleans them the best of anywhere in the world, solvent-free, carbon 60 that they call ESS 60 because it is so pure. And it's the same concoction and suppliers that have gone in with all of the lab testing, all of the research that's being done, more research coming. I'm going to have an interview next week with Chris over there at C60 Evo, who's the chief scientist who gets us all done. But basically, if you want to clean out your mitochondria, you want cellular health, you want to fight all of the chronic diseases, this is the way. Cellular health is the way to achieve health and longevity that keeps your body up to speed, your DNA, maintaining its integrity, and basically your telomeres, all of it. And so it fights inflammation, it fights everything because it gets deep into your mitochondria and in through your neurons, cleaning out your brain, cleaning out all your trillions of cells, basically. It's an incredible, incredible product. And at the end of the video, I'll talk about the fundraiser for the channel if you want to check it out there too at the end. But check it out. Great, great sponsors, and I love them. I also love, of course, the MCT oil, which is, of course, the coconut oil. It has a less concentration of the ESS60 molecule in there because of what coconut oil can hold. But people just love this for their workouts because of the MCT oil and how it does great for before and after recovery with workouts. Triathletes, people that are serious about their health, use it religiously, and it's amazing. Pets love it too. Incredible for dogs and cats. And those products are also there at the link, c60evo.com/YAFTV. Go to YAFTV for 10% off. Okay, thanks for listening to the plug. So here we are. We have this incredible meetup today in Alaska. I think I'm going to start by saying I think we should pray for President Trump. He looked both frustrated and maybe a little bit under the weather at the end of this conference today, where they came up to do this incredible, very brief presser after we've all been waiting all week to see what would happen, and didn't really think they'd reveal much because, of course, they're keeping everything close to the chest. And what's so important, I think, for all of us to understand, I'll put the glasses on as we get ready to report the news, but there's so much. I think that one of the most important things for people to kind of to grok or get from this is that the USA, if it can make a realignment with Russia, will basically be overturning the Atlanticist globalist rule, okay, of the world, the globe, through the globalist plan, the cabal, cartel Babylon, what I talk about on this channel incessantly, that for what has been the mission of the globalists for ever since World War II, but way before that, basically the plan of all of the secret societies, of everything to do with the globalists who want the one world government. Sort of missed the window here before the wind started here tonight, but that's what it is. Basically, is that they need Russia and the USA to be separate, to be enemies, perpetual enemies, so that Europe can continuously, and the Atlanticists, through the control of the cabal, through the intelligence agencies of the deep state USA, MI6, King's Privy Council, Pilgrim Society, the Royals, all of them, and the Masons, P2, Vatican, all of them, that they can steal all the money and the goods and everything out of the USA, and also the same plan to do the same to Russia. And they had all planned that World War III would happen, where it would be, of course, we would have World War III with Russia, and China would be involved as well, and that there would be this way for them to continue to stay in power, even though they have no military might. Okay, Europe has no military might whatsoever, and the only military might that exists in NATO outside of the USA really is in Turkey. Okay, Turkey has a huge military. And then there's the rest of the world, right? There's different Saudi nations that have militaries, but basically, Saudi or different Arab nations, but mostly the Saudis. And so Turkey has the other major military might, okay? And you could say Israel has a ton of weapons, but they have very small space, and they don't have a ton, even though they're planning to go full bore, Israel, full bore to capture, everything. Netanyahu's just full out there saying, we're going for the greater Israel nation. He's literally, just saying that that's his, divine mission is now not just Gaza, but it's like Lebanon, uh, parts of Egypt, Jordan. It goes even into Syria and beyond, and parts of Turkey. So Israel is the other World War III threat, of course. But the situation with Russia today, very, very important and interesting. So let me kind of focus in here and not get off the cuff like I can do. But basically, so Trump comes out at the end of the meeting there in Alaska. They specifically had it at the joint base in Alaska. That is, of course, Elmendorf Richardson Joint Base, and it's also one of the best missile protection systems in the country. Of course, to fight against Russia, China, or Korean missiles that could actually reach there. And it was agreed to for multiple reasons. Of course, today is the 80th anniversary of VJ Day, or Victory of Japan, the end of the war, okay, of World War II. And so a massive day, symbolic to have this meeting. We have Putin, very interestingly, in the presser today, throwing out, oh, hey, the next meeting should be in Moscow, and Trump was like, I don't think that's going to happen. And it most likely won't happen. But, the situation of it being there where it's the most protected, one of the best protected areas in the world, basically at this joint base there in Alaska. You have Governor Dunleavy, super proud to welcome them all in. And very interesting that when Putin, came to meet Trump on the tarmac with the red carpet rolled out and everything, and Putin coming in, they flew the B-2 bombers over there and the F-15s, and Putin looked a little like, oh God, the sound was a little frightening. Was it planned? Was it the timing? I don't know. But it was a very interesting meetup of them, shaking hands, coming to do this meeting, which is so important because this gets into America's opportunity to realign with Russia and to dispel this 100 years of the globalist Atlanticists, everybody I just named, attempt to keep America and Russia apart because our alliance, if we were to ally with Russia, we would be able to defeat the globalist cabal and have there be the chance and opportunity for nation states to actually control themselves and have a world peace that isn't controlled by a cabal that wants to take us over and rule globally and steal everything. And so that's why the EU is fighting so hard. And it was very interesting to see Trump. So at the at the end of it, we get the presser, very short, and Putin, and very interestingly, Trump gave the opportunity for Putin to talk for about 5 minutes, I guess, where Putin gave a great speech and said very important things that I think cannot be ignored, to do with the EU. And then Trump gave very short remarks. He sounded a little bit hoarse, as if he's having some respiratory issues, and he also looked and acted a bit frustrated and possibly angry. The meeting itself seemed to go for about 3 hours. This is multiple meetings with multiple people. You have the main meeting of course, Trump with Lavrov, etc., and you have, of course, Rubio, Witkoff, and Trump, all of them in the room. And then on the other side, you have people like Ratcliffe there from the CIA. You've got you have envoys out of Russia there who one of them came out and said it was incredibly successful, which was very interesting. Kirill Dmitriev came out before the press conference and said the meeting went incredibly well. That's the Russian envoy to the USA, special envoy. And you have, of course, this banner behind them all of the Alaska Accord saying pursuing peace. And Trump basically just came out and said, we're very glad to have this today, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'll get to that in a moment. But what Putin had to say that is so important, I think there's several things. And one of them that he had to say was that very definedly, he said, I would not have invaded Ukraine if Donald Trump were president in 2021. That's huge. Okay, that's a huge thing to say. We know that Biden refused to talk to Putin the entire 4 years of his presidency. And of course, all the Biden crime family uh, situation going on with the Ukraine coup and all of it, and Barack Obama, etc. And so much happening besides with the grand juries, etc. We'll get to that. But basically, zero talks with Biden for 4 years and $350 billion of our taxpayer money, plus this very bizarre and very interesting situation where the USA, first time since World War II, is supporting what is basically a Nazi regime in Ukraine, a Nazi backed base. And the whole purpose being to launch what would be this World War III with Russia, with Europe. And so Putin saying that is very huge. And then he also says uh, another two things that are really important. He says, we were asking Europe to please don't torpedo the progress we've made here today. And that's, I believe, why Trump didn't say anything, or why there wasn't questions, because the media enormously just attacked like jackals on Putin as soon as he arrived, as they were walking together, shaking hands, walking from the planes. You had the press saying, "Hey, you're going to stop killing people. Will be a ceasefire?" Just all of this. And he also said that, number two, what Putin said was, we got some understanding of what we can do to achieve peace here in this meeting. And so it's very interesting, as what I just said before, of that the specific at World War II, at the end of the World War II, we had, of course, Winston Churchill with his Iron Curtain doctrine, right? Immediately, we just literally, the war is just ending, and you have Churchill like on Truman's like mini-me shoulder, just coming out with this Iron Curtain thing immediately, right? And then we get Bretton Woods, we get all of it with, of course, the dollar as the world reserve currency. We get all of this built in that really just made that the USA was the cash cow to the world and the world's defense. Okay, creation of NATO, all of it, but and the UN and everything that comes with globalization that's centralized to Europe. And Viktor Orban had a very interesting thing to say yesterday, where he basically said, you know, in the EU, in Brussels, the European Commission, they're supposed to be our servant as nations, just like our Congress is supposed to serve us, right? Our government is supposed to serve us here. The unelected EU Commission, and he says this basically right here. He says Ursula von der Leyen is running the EU as a dictator, not as a servant. She's unelected. And of course, we saw what happened with Romania. They want Romania to be the next front line after Ukraine with this World War III. They've been trying to make happen, which is why Macron flew to Romania, why they still managed to steal the Romanian election. It was 100% going the other way, 100%. And they stole it anyway. And we've seen it with the attempted assassination of the Slovakian president, all of it. But it keeps growing and growing. And Viktor Orban is saying, you know, we have no freedom here because of this EU stranglehold. And so when when Putin is coming out and saying these things and Trump basically gives him the floor at this presser today, I think it's really important for people to see that it seems like, just from looking at Trump for so long and reading his body language, his everything, you get the sense that he was very pissed off about something. And I don't know if he was very pissed off. Well, I kind of feel, or just intuit that he was very pissed off about things that he found out. Okay, more than that he was pissed that something wasn't accepted to do with a ceasefire, etc. There can be no ceasefire when Putin is winning. Okay, and this knowing that the attempt of is just to build up as every time it's gone down, where the globalists have done FEFs, false flags, and then shuttered the peace talks. Then they've just re-upped their armaments, re-upped everything. And so very interesting to see as this goes down today. And so I want to dig in here to a little bit. I want to dig into what's gone down, that's led us to here, and kind of what we're seeing. So I'll cover Trump real quick. His remarks were really brief, and as I said, sounded like he had a little respiratory thing going on, etc. And he basically just said that we know here from today that Putin wants to see the killing end as well, wants the war to end, and that he basically said that we're going to be talking to the leaders, be talking to the EU leaders, NATO, and Zelensky, and then there will be more things coming forward, which seems like it will probably likely be in a couple weeks, not in a couple months. And of course, Putin threw out the let's have the next meeting in Moscow. He took advantage of his little media stint, and Trump was like, probably not, no. And so, it's very interesting as Europe, the conditions that came out before this meeting from Zelensky and the EU were insane. Okay. Basically the EU and, Germany, others, they've never, okay, stopped taking Russian oil, okay, and natural gas. They're dependent on it. And so as they fight this war and want to have World War III with Russia, they're taking it all. They're taking the energy, and their demands are that we want $500 billion from Russia to for reconstruction of Ukraine. We want to have an EU sort of UN guided military presence in Ukraine. We want to have those $350 billion of assets that were frozen and stolen from Russia to also be liquidated and become the rebuilding of Ukraine, basically asking for almost $1 trillion from Russia, and that they want so much besides zero land, okay, that Russia has already conquered in Ukraine, to be given, to be accepted that Russia has conquered it, and even to Crimea. All right, so these have been their demands, which is absolutely ridiculous. Okay, and so I'm going to get into the background here, and then we have so much news besides. So we're already at 20 minutes, so I'm gonna try to get to the other news too. But I want to say a few more things about what Putin said, and he said this gets into then some of the background I'm going to talk about here, but. He said, "We'll always remember when the USA and Russia defeated our common enemies on this anniversary today." He said, "Trump and I have had very clear and repeated talks since he came in as president 7 months ago. That Trump has tried to get to the heart of the history and the truth about the situation of Russia and Ukraine, and that we need to eliminate the root causes of the conflict, which go way back, of course, to Bill Clinton, and when he violated the Reagan and the Reagan and Russia deal, to Gorbachev deal, to not expand NATO, and started expanding NATO and all of it, and to understand that this has been a designed, a creeping, coming 30 years on, 40, 50 years practically, but like 40 years on, to create a World War III with Russia. And it's all to keep the EU as a central globalist power when they have no power, they have no economy, they have no military might. They have nothing except the cabal of the intelligence agencies in the royals, okay, that acts as an international globalist cabal that runs the deep states of all these nations, including ours. And that is what is coming to the fore. And there's so many interesting things. I watched a fantastic interview of Mel K with Matthew Ehret, incredible, uh, uh, historical theorizer and scholar, talking about so much to do with this history of Russia and the USA. And I'll link it below. It's really worth watching because I think it's one of her best interviews. But Matthew Ehret is amazing, and you can find him at Matthew Ehret. That's EHRET. MatthewEhret.substack.com. And if you scroll down to his latest, you'll see a lot of really interesting stuff. Some of it I'm going to allude here to, which is that in 2013, when Barack Obama was president, you had Putin suggest that they would 100%, I think it would cost, uh, how many billions? Let me get here. Basically, that in with the Bering Strait, okay, the Bering Strait, between, it's 55 miles between Alaska and Russia, and Putin had suggested, hey, all that energy in Alaska, we can all make tons of money if you want to send that energy we could have a whole trade system if we sent if we did a railway, okay, a railway from Alaska to Russia. And they had a whole plan here. It's been going on for a long time, where Russia has been trying to say, hey, let's do trade. Let's, and I think the getting Russia back in the G8, I think is huge part of today as well as multiple bilateral deals, which Putin also alluded to. And basically, what this is let me get here this great stuff, where you had the Bering Strait rail tunnel, where they said it would cost $65 billion to build. That Russia said they'd take the most hit on that, but that China would also support the building of this. And when we look at Russiagate, and now that grand jury is totally operational, and there's 4 grand juries now that the DOJ has put forward, that are everything from Russiagate, everything that the DNI Gabbard has put out to do with all the documents out of intelligence and the FBI and the DOJ from back in this time of the Clinton, funded dossier, all of it, the Steele dossier, etc. but the creation of this fake Russia scam, when of course we know that it was Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, and everything that happened with her to do with uranium one and the selling off of 20% of our uranium assets to Russia, everything with Kazakhstan and all of it, right? I think why Trump had the B-2 bombers actually fly over today was, of course, because the B-2s destroyed the Iran, destroyed the Iran uranium installations there, the nuclear installations in Iran. But it's interesting because it was really through Rosatom, the Russian uh, energy company that built those installations in Iran. And I think it's Trump's kind of way of pointing that out. And so this all gets back to Hillary Clinton. She was so in bed with Russia because they also had so much intel on her. They had so much. They have all the Epstein intel, by the way. They've got it all, and they had everything that she had already done to do with making $150 million off of uranium one, and everything that became the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton Global Initiative. Everything pointed to Hillary Clinton specifically, but the Clintons in general. Bill Clinton getting paid millions of dollars to go and speak on Russia's dime. Um, Hillary was the one, okay, that was connected to Russia. And so, just like they always do, which is we'll blame you for what we're actually doing, right? It's the abusive paradigm. It is the Dionysian paradigm. It is the Mossad paradigm. It is the way that intelligence works, and deception and demons and Satan, is that you always blame the other person for what you're doing. And that's why they came up with Russiagate, was because they needed to stop Trump talking to Russia. Okay, they needed to stop him talking to Putin. They created everything to do with Vindman. You're seeing on the MSM today, the mainstream media, they're bringing up Alexei Vindman. Okay, he's getting up there for his sound bites of, oh, this is Trump is a tyrant and he's, a liar and all of this. The whole and what's going on with all of the grand juries that are now reaching for is that they are going after the impeachment scam as well, all of it. Okay, so there's huge stakes here. There's huge stakes, and for what Trump is dealing with here, with trying to get the United States, okay, to be able to reconnect to Russia. The United States and Russia connected would defeat the globalist cabal. And it is probably the only way, actually, to defeat the cabal, honestly, besides straight out massive wars. Okay. Um, is that, the Russia and the USA together can dictate policy with our natural resources, with our energy, and really with our production and our ability to create massive economies. And so Trump is working so hard at that. And so let's look at it. Let's look at a few things of what Zelensky was demanding prior to the Alaska joint base meeting, which they chose because it has the best missile defense system, where they couldn't be mutually murdered by the cabal. Well, Zelensky, again, the 1 trillion in reparations from Russia, the indefinite ceasefire during the negotiations, which Russia has been moving massively through Donetsk, really saying, we're bringing our bigger boys here and our re-upped military, um, uh, to hold our ground right now, especially during these negotiations. They want guarantees of money and weapons from NATO. Okay, they've already secured the $1.5 billion in weapons from what the U.S. had already sold to places like Sweden, Norway, etc., and they're going to be using those, and that they won't remove their military from the areas near the occupied areas by Russia, and they want, of course, this UN EU. They can't call it NATO because that's like a whole, you know, too close of a connection. To have this military peacekeeping observance force, okay, to stop Russia from doing anything. And yeah, I say the plan should be that Trump and Putin take back control from the EU through not aligning with this. And Trump's in a real pickle here, of course, because of the whole worldview that we're all so mind controlled into. Of it is the United States and Europe. We're the same. We're the same. Europe is not the same anymore. Okay, and they've been trying to do it here. Europe has been destroyed. It's been depleted. They're so socialist that they can't support their economies anymore. They've climate change, activism, World Economic Forum, their economies into the crapper to basically hobble all of their citizens, and they've just Islamified all their nations. Okay, and these are people who their cultures don't build things. Okay, and certainly don't build Western civilization, and so they've already destroyed Europe. And so, if we can align with Russia, we can defeat that globalist, demonic, okay, destruction of what is the best civilizations in the world to do with human rights, rights in general, natural rights, constitutional rights, all of it. And so, and Christianity to survive what is, of course, the massive slaughter of Christians across the world. And so, very interesting because, we could have, with Viktor Orban, with Hungary, if Trump could do these deals, we could start seeing nations in Europe start to leave the EU. And this would be huge, okay? This would be huge, like Hungary, possibly Poland, who did amazingly get their election, even though the globalist cartel of the EU Commission tried to stop at the European International, which is the Nazi, which is the former fascist um, people out of World War II that created this fully communist, but the Trotskyites, the European International, to create the globalist world order, and everything that came out of it with the UN and all the treaties and all the people that are immune from any kind of international prosecution, any kind of prosecution anywhere, that hold so much power. And so it's very interesting to see all of this, that when we look at, where we're at, that's where we need to go, is that the US has to get out of NATO, and we have to end this UK Atlanticist globalist control of the USA once and for all, because ever since World War II and before, of course, ever since the killing of McKinley, which has everything to do with Albert Pike, and you get into so much history here where, of course, the killing of McKinley ended the tariffs, ended what Trump is doing now. McKinley had done. Our country had been running on tariffs before the Federal Reserve was formed, and the whole everything with 1913 and how they took over for the globalist banksters. And so we've been, and that's at the same time, of course, then the creation of the Bolshevism and the Russian Revolution and all of it, to take down the czars and take down um, the Russian government, and and create what has become this world control of the globalists by getting Russia and getting control of the USA, and knowing that they need us for this situation of there being one world government, that without the plunder of USA might and ingenuity and brain power and literal money, okay, everything we produce, they couldn't do it. And of course, the constant going against Russia being central to it. And their end game was, of course, to take Russia. This World War III was to take Russia, just like they did with the rape of Russia in the 90s. Everything that happened, where then they just literally went full bore, creating all the oligarchs, creating what became the disparate Russia, with all the stands and all of it, and all the mayhem that's come since, where with again Trotskyites, everybody setting up in Ukraine, setting up in the stands, all the alliance with Israel, the creation of Israel to make this possible. And again, for Israel to exist right now, if you go, the Talmud means something. Basically, they're not supposed to have Israel biblically until they have their Messiah. And of course, they don't, there's one guy who says he's the Messiah in Israel right now. And so many of them thought that Jacob Frank was the Messiah, okay, back in the late 1700s, and Zapatine Frankism, and the creation of the well, we're going to produce the Antichrist by doing everything against the Talmud and against the Torah, and just all this creepy crap, okay, that the Rothschilds funded and were into, and all the Masons, the creation of B'nai B'rith, all of it, right? All of them super into it together, who are cultists and believe in the reign of Lucifer for the one world government, all of the thousand points of light of George H.W. Bush, all of it. Well, this is what we're trying to defeat, and Trump has a giant opportunity to get us to get us off the hook of Europe right now, once and for all. And I think it would be the best thing that we could hope for. And so, I think in further videos next week, I want to dig into some of the background here, more to do with some of the, all of the, why they have made the US hate Russia, the Iron Curtain that was created, of course, because of communism, et cetera, et cetera. But they created communism in Russia, specifically funded by the Rothschilds, and 150,000 Jews brought in as Bolsheviks to overthrow everything, to kill the kulaks in Ukraine, um, to destroy all the rights of the farmers there, the people who grew all the money. Excuse me, grew all the money, grew all the food, made all the money, produced the economy, and then of course look at what Ukraine is today. And so the creation of communism was all an intelligence-based system, and then of course then made Russia into a communist state through overthrowing the czars, and then created what was, now we have the Iron Curtain. We can't connect with Russia because they're communist, right? While we can you know then also fund and create Mao, okay, and Chairman Mao, and the overthrow of the La Beijing, and the people of China and the farmers there, and destroy them, and steal all the food there and kill all the people there, funded by the same people who created, of course, the Bolsheviks. And and so it just keeps rippling forward. There is no allegiance to a political philosophy of the globalist satanic world order. They want to destroy humans and control everything and steal everything and the wealth of everything. And so even though there's a now communist Russia, that the Iron Curtain and Churchill and now the USA in 1945, 80 years ago, is supposed to hate, even though they literally were the ones with the USA who won World War II with the Russians and USA. Everybody else sucked. Okay, weren't able to do anything. France folded in weeks. Okay, literally like 6 weeks, done. And then you get the Vichy government, and you have all the Nazi sympathizers, all of that, and still the same people today, all part of this European International, the EU, the EU Commission, being the survivors of those families. And of course you had, of course, the resistance, French resistance. They were amazing. They helped the USA so much. But everywhere else, Ireland was like, screw you, screw you. We're good with the Nazis because the UK has been trying to kill us for a couple hundred years. Um, so it was Russia and the USA, okay, who ended the war, and yet were basically kind of the pawns and the people who lost the war, because our sovereignty got more and more lost as the creation through the OSS and then the CIA, and the Atlanticists moved heavy and heavier into the USA, brought the Nazis here, took over the science, took over the medicine, took over the creation of all the horrors of biowarfare and medical experimentation and torture that we have today and that we're dealing with now. And it's really disgusting and awful. And so we need to defeat them. And I pray, pray, pray that these talks are about uniting the USA with Russia, okay, and going against the EU cabal, standing against it, not to create some massive new divide or whatever, but to hobble and to take down the basically the EU Commission and the Royals control the cabal, the banksters, the Bank of International Settlements, everything out of Switzerland. That's what needs to happen. And quite frankly, it's our only hope, really. And so I'm going to move on from there to other news here for the last 10 minutes of this show today, because we have so much else besides. And yeah, I'm going to get into more background history next week, because there is so much that is so important. But we have some great stuff that also did happen today. Um, uh, that I want to talk about. And part of it is that we have, of course, in DC, with the federalization of the police, the DOJ has sent now a new demand and executive order, I believe, that that they have to that the police commissioner to Muriel Bowser, that the police commissioner of DC must hand over all documentation and everything to do with the DC police connection to um, any orders that they have in place to do regarding ICE, the activity of ICE, migrant protections, homeless and homeless encampments, this sort of thing, demanding complete cooperation. And you have AG Bondi putting out the order today, ending the sanctuary city status of DC, and so that's very important and great to understand. I think it's really important, and also that we have in Spain being declared, talking about the EU and how they're going basically like us, as Trump is fighting so hard to take back the economy, and why Scott Besson said yesterday, the EU better put up or shut up, because they're just stealing everything from us and they're not paying their way, and they just want everything from the USA and they're not putting up the money. And so he was very vocal on that, and it was really quite great to hear one day before the Alaska meeting yesterday with Maria Bartiromo. And so what we hear is that Spain, in this kind of collapsing, situation of the economy of the EU, that people in Spain are not allowed to withdraw more than 3,000 euros from the bank at a time. And it's all documented. They're all policed. That if they want cash money out of their bank accounts that are theirs, that are their money, their money, they can only take 3,000 at a time, 3,000 euros, and that they can get fined up to 150,000 euros if they attempt to do more than that. That they are slow rolling people's access to their money. We've, I've covered. It's been a lot of months, but back in, gosh, 6 months, 8 months ago, I was talking about these that they're basically attempting to seize people's accounts in Europe, and there's been the plan in multiple EU countries to basically steal their accounts, steal the money of the people, because that's where they're at. They're at the verge of trying to draft the population who all want peace. Only 25% of the people in Ukraine want anything for this war to continue. And everyone in Europe is like, we're not going to fight in Ukraine. It's not happening. So attempt to draft us, but we're not going. We don't want a war. We don't want a war with Russia at all. And of course, they have no real military might to speak of. Maybe Germany a tad. Okay. And as I said before, it's really only Turkey that has anything. So very interesting there with Spain now making that move with the banks, and the people's access to their own money, being, very, very, limited. And so let's go on from there. A few other things I wanted to mention. Oh, I did want to mention this today. Today is the release of the movie called Pardon Me. Pardon Me. You can go to the website. I'll link it below. Watchpardonme.com. Watchpardonme.com. That's a story of Bevelyn Williams. Bevelyn Williams. She was the incredible pro-life activist who was super persecuted by the Biden DOJ, by Merrick Garland, and everything to do with going after the Christian pro-lifers, people who would protest. And this sort of documents with the announcement of late-term abortion, late-term infanticide, and the activism of Bevelyn Williams, a mother herself, who was jailed, and Trump ended up pardoning her. And I know Silk, is Silk from Diamond and Silk, bless Diamond Soul and on her journey there with Christ. But Silk is in the movie. It looks like a fantastic movie. It's just coming out today, so many of these movies are circulating more and more. Of course, all the Angel Studios movies, etc. This one looks fantastic. So go and check out the trailer. Watch pardonme.com and try to see if your local cinema. They have ways you can request to do that on the web page, because that looks like a fantastic, awesome movie. Okay, and so yeah, I'm going to cover more and get back to everything. There's so much more besides on the Russia Ukraine stuff that has everything to do with George Soros, him with the Clintons planning this way, way back in the 90s, to do with Soros's Open Society Foundations being at the Ukraine embassy during the coup, the lead up to the coup, that it was all came out of Soros's doctrine, um, to have a NATO-based world order. And it's also important, okay, that, when you see Alexei Vindman up on doing the MSM shows today, you probably don't watch it, but, I try to aggregate news, and you get Alexei Vindman, who they wanted to install. He's a colonel, lieutenant colonel was, of the United States Army, and they were trying to install him because he's Ukrainian. He's one of the orphans from Odessa. He living in Little Odessa, New York, right? And he and his brother, super connected with all this uranium one stuff and everything else, and massive weapons and for entertainment purposes only trafficking, and his creation of this Trident company in Ukraine to try to manage and train the Ukraine army with the CIA and everybody else. Him up there saying, oh, what Trump's doing today is so awful. He's Putin puppet, the whole nine yards. He's tyranny. This is an authoritarian breakthrough, as they like to do, when literally it is Ukraine that is a dictatorship, and literally it is the EU, with the EU Commission, that is a dictatorship, overthrowing the nation states' own elections, etc. As I discussed yesterday, 2 days ago, the everything coming out about Smartmatic, the installation of the machines in 72 countries, USAID money, all of it out of our State Department under all these globalists. Um, so it's really interesting to see that he was the one that they wanted to be the Minister of Defense after the coup, the Maidan coup. That was literally where you had Open Society Foundations literally in the Ukraine embassy, the U.S. embassy in Ukraine, where everything was planned and went down for the coup that happened, okay, under Barack Obama. And Burisma, Hunter Biden, Cofer Black out of the CIA, all of it, stealing of everything. And so, yeah, more to say about that. We'll get back to it. But I wanted to mention some other things that are also going on here before I close today. One thing is that since Trump has federalized the DC police, it's been a huge response of yay. Okay, people of DC, if you look at the social media, TikTok and Facebook Live and all this, people are just like, oh my God, I can walk the streets. Like, it's amazing. It's incredible. And the, the videos that that have been out there about arrests or this and that going on have been pretty mellow. Nothing massive happening there. Judge Jeannie Pirro is, of course, trying to change the laws for youth to be prosecuted as as adults, basically, and to be held. And she says, my ears are deaf to the baloney that crime is down in DC, because that's all fake. Because of course they just don't count crime anymore. It's not even in the statistics because all the laws have been made to have it be that these aren't crimes, that they aren't recorded. And so very, very interesting here. We have, in response to that, Crowds on Demand, that company that supplies all the rioters for hire. They had a 400 times since surge of applicants to Crowds on Demand, where there's apparently a huge little rioter army that wants to be paid for their little bit of mercenary work where they make $200 a day. They're running towards Crowds on Demand to try to be part of this, and that's hysterical because, yeah, it's really ridiculous. And so, yeah, I might leave it there. There's a ton more to say, but I don't want to overdo. I did want to warn people that Zelle, that payment company, that it's a bill pay company, and it's linked with many, many banks, and it's a bill pay company that people use to just, pay people that do work here and there. Zelle has been massively compromised, and it seems like more and more banks and a lot of smaller banks are getting more into using Zelle, and they have been caught in massive fraud with massive hacking. And so I just want to let people know out there that Zelle looks really dodgy, for entertainment purposes only, with huge hacking, huge stealing, over $1 billion that is now being contested in New York, and lawsuits going on there. So I just wanted to warn you about that. Also, a very interesting thing that I need to get more into, but is very interesting. Um, Out of the military here with Hegseth, we get different factions of Army and Navy going into the Caribbean to take down drug cartels, gangs out of the Caribbean. They are going full bore here to try to rout out a lot of what is coming out of South America. Of course, this gets into Brazil, and it gets into um, massively Venezuela, and of course the Mexican cartels and all the connections I've been talking about in my recent videos. But it looks like the Caribbean hubs here are getting huge attention from the U.S. military. So as that unfolds, and I have more to report on it, I will definitely get it to you. And so we are going to end it there. I will mention this, that of course they are gearing up for 2028. We know we have Gavin Newsom now doing his really lame announcement of his run for presidency in 2028. Okay, and I just say go for it, Democrats, because you couldn't pick more of a loser, who has, I mean, he's what, the largest known arsonist in the world for entertainment purposes only at this time, okay, for what happened, what has gone on in the burning of California for the last, many, many years, not to mention the Palisades, etc. But he has failed in every way, but he is failing up. So he is trying to run for president. And of course, interestingly, you had a little ICE raid right outside his press conference where multiple people were arrested, illegals, and that was funny. But very interesting here where we get um, this situation of him running, because they're also trying to put this thing on the Supreme Court docket for repealing gay marriage. And if you want to have, like, just a stupid move at this point between now and 2028, it would be to even think about gay marriage at all. Okay. It is the potential to be a massive thing that we really don't need to deal with at this moment, because we've got a lot to do here with saving the republic and actually ensuring all of our rights. And it's basically already settled law. So it's not the same as Roe v. Wade. It's a totally different animal when it comes to its legal status. So trying to put Supreme Court on on gay marriage repealing, this gets into Kim Davis, who was the county clerk in Kentucky, who she was the county clerk there, so she was in charge of course, signing marriage certificates, and she got sued by a gay couple who wanted her to sign their marriage certificate, and she said, "No, I have religious reasons why I can't do that," and she won that and everything, but it was a huge deal. But she's appealing this lawsuit for restoration of everything that happened. And but she's also being her lawyers or whoever's managing this whole situation wants to be put onto her suit of repealing this attack on her, is to repeal all of gay marriage. And right now, at this point, in this juncture in time, it's just the Democrats putting out a massive talking point to other people to say, hey, this is what we're looking at, the destruction of civil rights of Americans. And this is not about saving children's lives by stopping trans. It's not about any of that. And we can talk about the adoption stuff. That's a whole different issue. But this is not the hill we need to die on before 2028 or even 2026. And even 2026 is more important as the redistricting is going on. And of course, part of Newsom's whole thing is he really wants to get this redistricting thing going, because they have, stolen. There's, what, like 5 seats for Republicans in California. Like they stole everything in that last election, where it was in California, where it was like a month later before they were deciding who won different seats in California, and just magically the Democrat kept winning in what were areas. And when there's huge polls going out in California as Newsom is putting this up, that this redistricting campaign, of massive pushback of Californians saying we don't want to redistrict. So it's very interesting to see what's going on here with that and the fight in California, because it's huge and it's fake, and so we'll see what goes down. But I think it's hysterical that Newsom's running, and we'll keep following it. So okay, yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. I will warn people one more thing before I go. We had this strange case of, two strange cases. One is in the Ozarks, earlier this week. You had this report of, I believe it was a woman who was swimming at the Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri. So this isn't full Ozarks, but Ozark, the TV show and all that. But the Lake of the Ozarks, huge lake, right, in Missouri, and basically you had what is a brain-eating amoeba. Okay, apparently is being connected to the Lake of the Ozarks. This woman is suffering from this, and pray for her that she'll be okay. But this brain-eating amoeba. So this ongoing, there's so much more to talk about with the cattle ticks, and creating the alpha gal disease and the histamine response. All the attack they did this year to do with the potent deadly ticks that I actually went through, and was massive. Um, so there's assaults going on out there, and they're trying to do vaccination through ticks, and Bill Gates is funding it through, of course, University of Western Michigan. So that's going on. And the last thing I'll mention is the dollar store had a massive recall of their instant coffee, which of course is just China crap at the dollar store, where everybody had to shop when they made everybody poor. But basically, instant coffee from the dollar store being recalled because of glass content. Okay, so you buy coffee from China and it's got glass in it. Okay, and that's kind of like probably not a mistake. All right, the bastards. And so you got to be careful where you're buying stuff. And of course, as much as you can, got to buy American, got to support local, right? It's just so important. And I know coffee's a tough one, but there's so many patriots out there selling coffee. I'm sure you can find one of those that you trust. Okay, I'm going to leave it there for today. I could say one more thing. Norm Eisen, because you know how much I can't stand Norm Eisen. He just received the 2025 Jewish Democrats Award. Norm Eisen, the chief, the guy who controls, Chief Justice Roberts, this, former ambassador to Czechoslovakia, Norm Eisen received the 2025 Jewish Democrats Award. He is literally the one who writes the rule book, the lawfare rule book for the color revolution that went through the Center for Democracy, the everything with USAID, all the color revolutions. This is Norm Eisen, the big architect there. He just won the 2025 Jewish Democrats Award. Um, King of the color revolutions and lawfare infrastructure versus Trump versus MAGA versus everything versus what's going on now with their plan. Okay, to try to, you have the New York Times today saying that, why isn't there a military coup on Trump? Okay, literally, the New York Times, like, we thought there would be a military coup. What's going on? Like, there's no military coup on Trump. This is the level of crazy. And so that's just classic. Okay. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to leave it there. And I hope you found this to be an interesting and helpful video today. And we'll do more next week. It's Friday. Great developments happening here. We have so much to be hopeful for, so much to pray for, and to take action with. The redistricting fight in your area is so important. And also, your town councils, your city councils, they need to be taken back from the globalist infrastructure because it is globalist. All the COP40 mayors, all of this going on is what we need to be on the local level. It's your town councils, your city councils. The fight really is there local to create the permanent change that we need. And that's like in the ditches, like in the trenches, is those places. So if you feel led to do that, please get involved. And prayers ongoing, full armor of God as we get in our prayer war rooms and just really pray to be blessed and that God's hand have a huge effort and effect here in what is going to happen in this Russia USA talks. Okay, and what we can do to take down the Atlanticist globalist control and reclaim the sovereignty of America, but also then help what should be mega, right? Make Europe great again. What should be the connection of populist movements all throughout Europe working together to defeat the globalists, just in tandem with each other. There needs to be a huge European movement to do this, to take them down. And so that's where we're at, and that's what we pray for. And so I'm going to leave it there. If you found this channel to be helpful today, this video, then please consider donating to support the channel. So I can do more, research more, keep bringing you more news. There's ways to do so below, and I'm so appreciative of it. And I will also mention one last opportunity here, which is, of course, I'm able to give away 2 bottles of C60 Evo capsules every month. To anybody who donates to the channel, you get the 15% off, the new code link. But you also get entered into a giveaway where I'm able to give away a bottle of the capsules, which I love. They are gelatin caps so that vegans know in advance that they're gelatin. But I love them. I carry them in my pocket, take them, when I need them during the day for energy and clarity and focus and, just inflammation, shall we say. And they're just incredible. But what I'm also doing here is a fundraiser for the channel, because I was gifted a bunch of these bottles of capsules that had recently expired. And they have a great, I'll just say at least 8-year shelf life. But of course, through the rules, they have to have expiration dates yearly, and I'm doing a fundraiser for the channel. Say if you haven't wanted to commit or just want to try it, for $60, that's like basically $50 donation plus $10 shipping. You can try it, okay? Because people, it's pricey. People are like, I don't want to commit. This is one way to support the channel. Do a fundraiser and check out C60 Evo, which is amazing, and then you'll be like, wow, it is amazing. And then it goes from there. You can get more bottles than one if you want. In the description below, I tell you how. And it has nothing to do with the Evo website. It's directly through this channel in the description below, just as a fundraiser for the channel as I try to raise money to be able to do more and give you more. And so check it out below. It's a great way to experience the product. And if you take the product, it's a great way to to store up, you know, to basically get your larder full. So check it out below. Thanks so much for watching. You are free. Have a great weekend. Turn off your devices for a set period of time. Get away from them. Enjoy life. Enjoy nature. Enjoy your family, your communities, and your congregations, etc. You are free, and I will see you next time.